Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN The Hub's Fantasy Football Strategy Show. Every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. And I'm here with Kasey, Vlad to the Bone, Shienvold.
How are you, Dan?
I'm doing great. We do not have Ross here today. He's at some mysterious lunch. He disappears. We've talked about this before. We think Ross might be a superhero, but it's like kind of what the Incredibles kind, where
Yeah, espionage, I think, is his specialty,
and
honestly.
he we know that he'll be making some kind of bumbling mistakes. I mean, I'm sorry, Ross, but come on, if you were a superhero. So, guys, let's talk about the schedule here first. Next week, we're not going to be here. It's the holidays. We give everybody off, including the MFSN staff. I didn't want to make everybody come in, including myself. So we're not going to be here next week. We will pick up January 5th, Thursday, same time. And we're going to keep this show right on rolling. But, of course, we know football, fantasy football, is really winding up. We're in the
It'll be
semifinal
over
round.
by then. Yeah.
It'll be over by then. I mean, even the NFL itself will be, a month out from the actual Super Bowl. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, this is a strategy show. And what that means is football continues. We have been talking Dynasty a lot lately, and I want to keep that up. I'm loving Dynasty. By the way, Kasey, I have our next Dynasty League is getting organized. I have a bunch of people who want in.
Another Dynasty Football League.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is one where we'll get them committed to making sure that they respond to trades. You guys know out there, we talk about trades a lot, and we want to have people who are responsive. So we're going to be talking Dynasty football. For those of you out there who are really fantasy junkies and play fantasy basketball, we do. Kasey does it grudgingly. He does it grudgingly, but he does
it out of obligation.
And every year I draft and I'm like, this team is really good. And then they inevitably get injured. And I'm like, this team is very mediocre. And that's where we're headed this year again. We're going to talk Dynasty football. We're going to talk basketball, but we're even going to start to talk baseball because this is a strategy show. And by the time February hits, people are starting to talk about their keepers. They're talking about sleepers. We'll get right into it. Listen, we're around the clock here at MFSN. So keep your questions coming. As far as today goes, let's talk about the happenings in the NFL and how they impact fantasy, because we've got most leagues have semifinals going on this week. You got a lot of stuff. So, Case, let's talk about how you position yourself if you're in a semifinal, which, by the way, you are. I got eliminated by Ross, even though I had the second highest score in the league. Very frustrating. Typical fantasy football. What are you looking to do in a semifinal other than win?
Win. Obviously. No, look, one of the things that we often get asked is like, should I play this guy or this guy? And they start to overthink their team. If you're in the semifinals, and I say this all the time, ride the horses who got you there. Don't get cute and bench somebody who's been your number 1 or 2 wide receiver all year because you're worried about the weather or a tough matchup. Because as we watched last weekend in the Buffalo-Miami game, terrible weather, Jalen Waddle still caught a 60-some yard touchdown. And if you had him on your bench when that happened, you would have been miserable. And if it kept you out of the finals, it would have been worse. So one of the things I'm always looking at is don't get cute at this point. Your strategy has worked really well up to this point. Why would you change it now?
Yeah, Scott Pianowski, I think he's still with Yahoo. He talks about this is a counterpoint to what you said, actually. He talks about not getting too afraid, not making decisions just on which kind of loss you can take. I can't remember what he calls it. It's like the least...
I don't know.
The least unacceptable loss, something like that. It's a much more eloquently stated thing. And I've thought about that because, a lot of the time I do make choices based on, we got to say hi to Just Bob here. Just Bob, thank you for joining us.
Hey, welcome back.
Good to see you. Ross may be joining us midstream, in which case you can
say hi to him.
Say hello, gentlemen. Hello, Ross. One of our favorite lines on the show.
It is.
But, I always do make the decision. What's the loss that I can take? And we know in sports, that's not the way to play. Don't play to lose. Go for it. Right. I agree with what you're saying, Kasey. I do not disagree with that. I think ride the horses that guide you there. Unless you really have a strong instinct, go for it.
I look at let's look at what Zay Jones did last week, right? 108 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like top scoring wide receiver by far, obviously in fantasy, and he's been a very good wide receiver, right?
Right. But who really started him?
But no, I had him on my bench. A
lot of people did.
But but say you have, let me look at the schedule. Hold on. Let me see. You have
You mean you're thinking about playing Zay Jones going forward?
right. So let's say you have AJ Brown going against the Cowboys with Gardner Minshew as his quarterback now.
Oh my God,
But
Ross isn't here to mispronounce that.
or so are you going to really bench AJ Brown to play Zay Jones on a Thursday night against the Jets in New York for the Panthers? Like
The answer is no.
but some people would say, well, AJ Brown is against a tough defense and has a backup quarterback throwing to him, whereas Zay Jones and Trevor Lawrence have great chemistry right now. So I wouldn't make that play, but there are some people who say I just think that's the smarter play.
I know. And listen, some of them are gonna get to glory. Now, Just Bob says, if you play it safe, are you really trying? I love that. And
so let me ask you this, Just Bob. In my scenario that I just said, is AJ Brown playing it safe or is Zay Jones playing it safe?
that's okay. Yeah, Just Bob, weigh in on that. I want to hear what your thought is. But so Zay Jones put up this big game.
And he's had a good last 4 or 5 weeks. It's not like he hasn't done anything outside of that.
He has. I mean, he was terrible at Detroit that one game. But
Yeah.
I mean, the 3 weeks otherwise, he was massive. So, and I do think that it would be one thing if he just was playing with, some random quarterback and you couldn't really trust it. But the thing is, I like to see trends that make sense to me. Trevor Lawrence ascending makes sense to me. It's Zay Jones suddenly becoming an amazing wide receiver out of nowhere. That does not make sense to me. Okay, so Just Bob says, as I think we both agree, you play AJ without a shadow of a doubt.
Right. And now look, I made it an extreme example going with a clear number one receiver against a 3/flex receiver. And so that becomes an easy choice. But let's say it's, Zay Jones and Treylon Burks, or Zay Jones and
it's interesting.
Brandon Ayuk.
Okay, see, I think Ayuk is a little bit tougher. With Burks, I think it's a little easier. I mean,
Tannehill is hurt, isn't he? Isn't Willis playing this week?
Yeah, Willis is playing.
So
no, that's what I mean. It's easier to just sit Burks and go with Zay Jones, go with that huge upside. When you've got Ayuk, anytime the decisions are closer, it becomes harder to decide what to do. Let's say hello to Albert Mariquin has joined us. Good afternoon.
Welcome back,
Albert. Welcome back. Let us know if you do have questions. I was explaining to the early adopting viewers today that this is a strategy show. It never ends. We will be off next week, but we're going to be talking dynasty throughout. We're going to start talking fantasy basketball just to torture Kasey, and we're even going to start.
I'm so bad at it.
We're going to talk baseball. It's not just because you're bad at it. It's also because you hate it.
Oh, look, I love it when they talk to each other. Just Bob wants to say hello to Albert as well.
There you go. Hello, Albert. Hello, Just Bob. Hello, Kasey. Hello, me. Now, Just Bob says Jones over Ayuk. I agree with that too. It's got to be pretty extreme if you're.
I just worry about Jones on a Thursday night because usually it's a simplified game plan. The Jets do have
a decent
pass defense.
Thursday game.
And then if he does and this makes no sense from a logical or rational perspective, but if my guy lays an egg on Thursday night, I have literally 48 hours to think about nothing except now I'm way behind already.
That's
going
right.
into the weekend.
But Thursday games are so sloppy. You guys, it would be awesome if you guys just keep saying hi to each other. We'll keep highlighting it the entire time. All right, Albert. Oh, are you manning the questions or am I? This is the first time we both are.
I know. Go for it.
All right. Albert Mariquin says, Ken Walker or Tony Pollard full PPR? Case, I'll let you go first.
Well, it depends. What is Ken Walker's status? Is he still in the injured portion? Because he's still marked as questionable.
Are you researching right now?
Yeah.
We do that.
He did not practice Tuesday or Wednesday. And he likely went down as a non-participant on Thursday as well.
And it's a Saturday game.
So
I'm already leaning Pollard.
I would lean Pollard just because of that.
But as a fun exercise, let's assume there's no injury.
Okay. Let me look at their stats for the last 4 weeks here.
Just Bob says I would go with Pollard. I mean, Pollard also really passes the eye test, doesn't he?
Yeah, Pollard has in the last 4 weeks, he has 4 touchdowns, averaging about almost 70 yards on the ground and another 16 yards in the air to go with 12 receptions. What about Ken Walker?
Pollard is one of those guys that if I invested in him this season, which it's not that I didn't choose to, I just never had the chance to. He was
I
usually
invested in him. I got him pretty heavy this year.
it was a great investment.
Whereas the last 4 weeks, Ken Walker is averaging.
Are you talking the last 4 weeks he played or the last 4 weeks?
Last 4 weeks. I can look at.
Well, if it's average, it still should be okay.
10 carries per game, 37 yards.
It's all brought down by injury, though.
Yeah, but he only catches 1 to 2 passes per game. And the Chiefs in bad weather are not the easiest play. So,
and this is full PPR. I go Pollard. It's a tough call, and you guys know how much I love Kenny Walker. I've talked about it all year.
Okay, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Kenny Walker, but I think you go Pollard in this case.
All right, before I have several topics that I want to shift to, but while we're on running backs, let's talk a little dynasty, Kasey, because I have won 1 after tanking.
Yes,
I learned I took some lumps in dynasty, figuring out how to play it for the first time. And I now understand a lot of stuff. So I decided, let's tear this thing down. Let's rebuild it. I did it. I got 1-1 this year. Now, everybody is saying, take Bijan. He's the number 1 pick.
I have 1-3 and 1-4, by the way.
You have 1-3 and 1-4. Wow. And I have 1-1 and 1-6. You're fantasy experts here, sucking at dynasty. Actually, we're getting good, but it took us some time. So, is Bijan the number 1 guy? I mean, you took Ken Walker second, I think, last year. Is that right?
Yeah. After Breece Hall.
After Breece Hall. So the running back.
But that was because the best quarterback in the draft was Kenny Pickett, and nobody trusted him. This year you have, Albert
Marroquin asked, is this super flex? And yes, it is.
Yes, it is. So it's a 2 quarterback league. And so I would not be taking, if I believed I had 2 or 3 good young quarterbacks, I might go with Bijan in the first pick. But I mean, honestly, 1-3, I'm hoping to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks. And then 1-4, whatever's there. Now I might take 2 quarterbacks at 1-3 and 1-4 if Bijan goes in 1 or 2.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is Bijan and then the 2 quarterbacks are my next picks, or maybe they're before. I'm not, my league members, they're not watching except for you.
Right.
If they do watch, they're going to learn something, which is I don't want to take Bijan. I do not like the running back asset.
Right. I know you don't. And I think you have a better chance of getting Bijan at 6. You're not going to get another quarterback at 6, at least one of those top 3.
Well, there's no way I'll get Bijan at 6. Not in this league anyway.
It depends who the wide receivers available are.
That's true. There's some great ones. So Albert Marroquin is weighing in ways that I'm thinking here. Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. That's the big question I'm asking. I mean, Bijan, I don't want to have to pick him. I want one of these 2 guys, and the question is who.
I hate that I have the 3rd pick because I'm fairly convinced I'm not getting one of those 2 guys.
But that means you could get Bijan.
But I could get like Bijan and Will Levis or Anthony Richardson if I think he's going to do something, or one of the wide receivers who are coming out.
Okay, so let's have this debate. Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Albert Marroquin's pointing out, see if you can trade back. That's absolutely what I want to do. And in fact, Kasey, we could strike a deal right here.
I'm not giving you 3 and 4 for 1. That's for sure.
No. You just listen. I'll actually see trading back to 3 is so risky because I can't miss out on one of those 2 quarterbacks.
Right. And if I'm trading up, it's to take one of those 2 quarterbacks.
That's right.
Who has pick 2? Hold on. Let me check.
Let's see who has pick 2. So Just Bob says CJ Stroud. Here's the question. Why would people say one or the other? I think height is part of the issue. CJ Stroud is the guy who has the more prototypical.
Yeah. By the way, pick number
NFL
2
body.
is 100% a quarterback.
Why? Who is it?
It's 5 Deadly Venoms.
Oh my God, he's definitely picking a quarterback.
He has Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, and then Case Keenum.
Ooh. Well, he had Tom Brady, but he traded him. All right, we've got a question coming in from Blurpy.
Hello, Blurpy.
Blurpy. Zonovan Etienne, Evans, or Judy at flex. So I'm assuming you can only play one. I also have D-Hop at wide receiver 2, so I could play one of those wide receivers at that spot too. Okay, helpful information. All right, picking one of those guys.
Ooh.
Now, Blurpy, I normally would ask, well, is this standard? Is this PPR? I'm going to assume standard whenever I don't get any indication. I definitely would continue to play D-Hop at wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
I'm not a Judy fan in this situation.
Especially who's going to be quarterback? Didn't they say Russell Wilson's out again this week?
Well, Russell Wilson's been out all season, even when he plays.
Right. He can't cook. Zonovan got hurt. What is his status? Let me look.
He is dinged up. I mean, he's also wearing down. You know, like this is a time when running backs at the end of the season really have some trouble. Okay, this is PPR league, Blurpy says. Also, Blurpy's well informed. Russ is playing and cleared. I still say no. I still say no.
So is Zonovan Knight. He's expected to play tonight. I would prefer ETN in tonight's matchup to Zonovan Knight. And Mike Evans had a good game last week. The Bucks play
very hard to trust.
They play the Cardinals Sunday night. It's not a tough matchup for Evans. So
did you hear it's PPR?
Yeah, it's between Evans and ETN. Those would be the two I would. Wow.
I think I'm going to go with Etienne, but it's really close with Evans.
But Trace McSorley is the quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like Trace McSorley because he went to Penn State, and I'm a Penn State fan. But does that ding D-Hop's value?
It's a good question. Well, okay.
Again,
you could play Evans there.
Yeah. Would it be ETN and Evans or ETN and D-Hop?
To me, that's actually more the question here. Zonovan, with his injury and certain questions, and is he wearing down, is out. Judy's and the way that Denver's been is out. So to me,
think ETN is in, and then it's between Evans and D-Hop.
I agree. I really agree. Let's see.
And the good news about that is they're playing each other. So you don't have to make a call on that until 5 minutes before that game starts.
That's true, which means you get to obsess about it for even longer. That's the kind of thing I just want answered. Okay, Blurpy says, yeah, I'm leaning Etienne. So now Blurpy, let's consider, should it be, and let's see what the audience says about, should it be Hopkins or Evans? Now, Just Bob says, keep D-Hop, play Etienne. I lean that direction also, but I don't know. How did Evans do last week, Kasey? Look that up for me, will you?
He had a good week last week. I know he had like 8 catches in the first half.
Now, Just Bob points out, Bam, that's Zonovan Knight, has no value with Wilson at QB. That's true. Well, it's close to true, at least. It is certainly way down.
He had 9 targets, 5 receptions, 83 yards.
When was the last time he got in the end zone?
I don't know.
Look up Hopkins stats, will you?
Yeah.
But it is very hard with a guy like Wilson at QB. They can stack the box against Zonovan Knight. I don't feel good about that. In any case, I think Etienne is the way to go.
D-Hop last week had 7 targets for 60 yards against Denver.
See, I actually think I would start Evans. I think I would start Evans.
7 for 79 yards.
I think I would start Evans. They're similar, but the Cardinals have a worse QB, if you can say that with how Brady's playing. And they also have, I think, an even more crowded wide receiver room, which is also that's saying something. Okay, Blurpy says, it's funny because Etienne and Zonovan play each other tonight and D-Hop and Evans play on Sunday night. LOL. So you're choosing between games.
Yeah, Evans he had all 5 of his catches in the first half. If you go to Blurpy pointed that out, that Evans had all 5 of his catches in the first half and then had none in the second half. And so the question is, but if he gets 5 catches for 80 yards in the first half, are you really all that upset? It just, at the end of the day.
Blurpy says D-Hop did the same thing with Trace and McCoy basically during that Broncos game. Here's the point you're looking for. Just Bob says D-Hop is QB proof. Those are the kind of wide receivers you're looking for.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's what I was talking about earlier when it came to A.J. Brown going with Minshew instead of Hurts. By the way, if I can vent for 1 minute, I've been the highest scoring team in 3 different fantasy football leagues this season, and Jalen Hurts was my quarterback. So I had buys in all 3 leagues, and now I'm walking into the semifinals, and I have Daniel Jones and Justin Fields starting in one. I have Tua starting in one. Oh,
Yeah, you're
brutal.
limping in. My condolences, but at least you're still in. All right, Albert Merrick says, Blurpy, wait to see what your fantasy score is going into Sunday Night Football, then choose between Evans and Hopkins. This is a very underrated kind of strategy, especially in the playoffs. But even in the regular season, it's a great thing to do. You know, you want to decide on an upside play versus the floor play. And this will tell you
let's
more.
look at the different pass defenses too. Like these are.
Say it again, Case.
The fantasy ratings for the both pass defenses.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. With all of these ratings, don't you guys think that football changes too much week to week to fully believe in this stuff? Remember 2 weeks ago, Ross asked me, would the Cowboys cover a 17-point spread against the Texans? And my instinct was no.
Now, I said no too.
But they didn't even come close. It was, and that's football for you. Blurpy says, yeah, Bob, I agree. I think it's a slight decline with Trace, though. He's talking about D-Hop as QB proof. Just Bob says, Danny Dimes is going to be a top 10 QB this week. I would not be surprised about that, Case.
I hope you're right, by the way.
I would not be surprised. What's the matchup?
Vikings. That's the only thing I got going for me.
You got more than that. Here's the other thing about Danny Dimes. He's a quarterback who runs. You know.
Yeah, that's the only thing that saves him. But I'd still rather have Jalen Hurts.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. But, you know, I got to give you some credit where credit is due. You picked quarterbacks who also run. That saves their value so much.
Yeah,
you know,
I focused on that. That's why I have Justin Fields, Danny Dimes, and Jalen Hurts.
Let me ask you this. Are you worried at all about Justin Herbert not running as much anymore?
Justin Herbert?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to run as much while that...
this year for sure, but going forward in Dynasty.
I'm not terribly worried because you don't have to run a lot for it to add value. You just have to be willing to run in from 3 yards or 7 yards out on a scramble drill.
Yeah.
He was never going to be the guy who's rushing for 70 yards a game and throwing for 250. That just isn't his. But he's the guy who can get outside of the pocket when the pocket collapses and make something happen with his feet. I don't think that changes. I think that's an instinct thing. His injury didn't help his confidence with it, his ribs. But I think giving him an off season, he's going to forget about that and he's going to go back to the same Justin Herbert he was.
All right. Blurpy says, would you go Andrews, Waller, or Ingram? I'm leaning Andrews just because matchup, even though Lamar is out. I mean, obviously, if Lamar's in, this is not even a question. But, you know, it's so hard for me to go away from the biggest talent there. And Waller, with his, you know, injury risk and inconsistency, I still go Andrews.
I'd go Andrews too, just because Ingram's going tonight in the Meadowlands, which again, he's a risk. All of them are risky plays, but he's the one who could actually end up with 1 point. And then you're living with that saddled around your neck until the next set of games start 48 hours from now.
I hate the Thursday games.
And Waller is an injury risk, and they're going up against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. And living in Pennsylvania, I will tell you this, they're calling for a high of like 13 degrees. That's just not good. So I would probably lean Andrews.
I can see the argument for Waller, though, because, you know, you've got a decent starting quarterback, and the other options are really not that great. Now, Just Bob, who disagrees with us, he says Waller, then Ingram. He says Lamar's going to be out. So I think he's just thinking Andrews, no way. But, you know, the good thing about tight end, the comfort of how bad tight end is.
Almost everybody has a bad tight end.
And you could go wrong playing anyone. All right. Just Bob says Vikings have given up top 10 quarterback to 7 of the last 8 quarterbacks. And the last quarterback that didn't was who?
Matt Ryan.
Oh, Matty Ice. I was like, Matthias. That's just how slow my brain was right there.
Last week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that game was insane.
Yeah, Dan wasn't with us. Dan wasn't with us on Tuesday when we talked about it. Matt Ryan now holds the dubious record of blowing the largest regular season lead ever and the largest Super Bowl lead ever.
That's true, but he's not the defense of those teams.
And I'm sorry, when you score 33 points in the first half and then 3 points in the second,
okay,
some of it has to fall on the offense.
Well, that's bad, but how much of it was due to bad turnovers or things like that? Because I actually didn't get to watch the whole thing.
There were some No, the defense just couldn't stop him in the second half. KJ Osborne went nuts. Justin Jefferson was Justin Jefferson. There was one, and the only turnover that was really memorable was the one where they returned it for a touchdown, but then because the refs blew the play dead, they had to take the Vikings touchdown off the board, and they still came back to win.
I also have to ask: did the Colts even really want to win that game? I mean,
I don't know. Like if Jeff Saturday wanted to be a coach in the NFL at any point after this week, you have to at least try.
Yeah, no. Some people said that the first half was an audition for him and the second half was for the pick, but it doesn't work that way. If you are the coach that manned that, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Albert Marquand says it's going to be bad weather in tonight's game. So
if it's anything like it is here, I can vouch for that. It's just right up about an hour and a half northeast of me. So
it's getting very, very cold in the Midwest and on the East Coast. And listen, Thursday night games are just not the most skillful games. I don't know what they can do about this, but Thursday night games are just a blight on football. I think they're so bad.
They, because it's such a short week, they can't do a full game plan. It's almost like they should figure out a way to make teams coming off a bye play in that Thursday night game so that they actually have 11 or 12 games.
For sure. I think that's right. Okay, Blurpy has a question. You think Rodgers will be good this week? I have heard, so I got to play Rodgers. All right,
yes.
Why? Tell us why.
He's going against Miami, which doesn't have the greatest pass defense right now. And it's going to be in Miami, one of the few places where it's going to be like 70 to 80 degrees and sunny. And it's going to be a shootout. Miami's going to put points on the board. And so he's going to have to air it out. I do think he'll probably throw a couple picks, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in there.
Well, also, I mean, what do you think of the difference with Aaron Rodgers with Christian Watson doing what he's doing?
And I was going to point that out too. Christian Watson has really come on the last month or so. Alan Lazard is reliable. Randall Cobb is now back in the slot for him, which is always a security blanket. And Tanyan's a decent tight end. So he's got the weapons. Dillon rushed for 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones is always a weapon. So there's plenty of players around him so that they can't key on one thing. If the offensive line can protect, I think Rodgers is going to put up a lot of points.
Rodgers also is an interesting player at this point. He's got a decent floor because he's likely to throw at least a touchdown, but his yardage has been terrible. It's been
because they're running the ball 65% of the time.
Yep. Just Bob's making an observation, I believe, about Thursday. NFL took all the crappy games and gave them to Amazon. Take the money and run.
Give Amazon a little of their own medicine. I like it.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it does have that look. The NFL is very smart this way. It's hard to say Amazon's dumb. They've done some things pretty well.
They can afford to be dumb for a while and still make.
But how do you think Al Michaels feels?
Well, he has threatened to retire over the quality of games on Thursday nights.
It's so bad. All right, let's talk about some other happenings in the NFL. One of the stories I'm following is Brock Purdy. What do you think about this?
I love it. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Trent Dilfer. Remember Trent Dilfer back in the 2000 Ravens, where they knew they had a great defense. They knew they had a great running game, where they beat the Giants in the Super Bowl right after they left Cleveland.
We sat next to each other in that game, and it was not fun for either of us.
No, and
for different reasons.
But Trent Dilfer, there was nothing flashy about him, right? Like, he was a game manager. San Francisco has a great defense, 2 good running backs, 2 good receivers, and a good tight end. They don't need somebody who can carry you. They need somebody who can hand the ball off, do a decent job on play action pass, and get rid of the ball quick. As long as he can do that, I think they're the only team that can beat the Eagles, I think, going to the Super Bowl in the NFC.
I agree, and it would be so fun to see a rookie quarterback do that. But I will say there's one difference with Brock Purdy from Trent Dilfer. I have a lot of respect for Trent Dilfer, especially given what he's been through in his personal life. But Brock Purdy's so young in his career that
Trent Dilfer was a first-round pick, wasn't he?
Brock Purdy's but by that point, he was really known to be a game manager and not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas Brock Purdy, he could get confidence. He could catch fire.
He's playing with the kind of I have house money kind of approach. Like I have nothing to lose. I was a 7th round pick. I'm not supposed to see the field. I was supposed to carry a clipboard all this year, and
Well,
now I might have a home game in the playoffs.
well, dare I say, is this part of the reason Brady's been as good as he has been? He never had any pressure at that draft spot. I mean,
Well, he
now,
started to once he won a Super Bowl or two, but yeah, I mean,
true, but by then he had already
right.
achieved a very good career. I would love to see Brock Purdy do well for multiple reasons, but from a dynasty perspective, what do you expect of this guy? Is Jimmy Garoppolo gone because of this?
I think Jimmy Garoppolo's gone regardless. Because he's a free agent and he's coming off his like
And he's
third
gonna get paid.
season-ending injury in the last
Well,
4
that's also
years.
true.
So who's going to give him a ton of money to do it? But I don't think Purdy's the guy next year. I think you give Trey Lance one more shot, and they'll probably draft another quarterback in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round. I don't think from a dynasty perspective, I think he's somebody you want on your dynasty team, but not because you're banking on him.
What if he wins the Super Bowl with them? How do you bench that guy?
Ask Joe Flacco. I mean, Joe Flacco won the Super Bowl with the Ravens, and within a year and a half was a bench war. They drafted, Lamar Jackson. Like,
all right, but that's within a year and a half. I mean, and people draft their quarterback of the future all the time.
You're telling me that the NFL teams, coaches, scouting departments, with as sophisticated as they've come, you give them an off season to prepare for Brock Purdy, that he's going to be able to shut them down?
I mean, it's a very, very important good point. You just, don't trust what you're seeing here because they haven't been able to adjust to it. You see
I equate it to like Austin Riley was a perfect example. We'll go baseball for a second. Remember when Austin Riley got called up 3 years ago? He hit or Reese Hoskins is another perfect example. They hit like 10 home runs in the first 20 games of their career or 15 games of their career. And everybody's talking about him as if, oh my gosh, the next great power hitter has arrived. Well, lo and behold, you get 100 at bats on film of this guy and you're like, wait, he can't hit if you throw it this way or you throw it here. And for Hoskins, ever since he's been a 220 hitter, Austin Riley took almost a year and a half before he figured out how to fix his swing so that they couldn't expose that.
He made the adjustments. Yep.
Right.
And that's something to keep in mind. Don't count these guys out. Maybe they get scouted and it's understood what it is that they're doing and how to play against them, but then they can figure it out too. L Cross has a question. Pick 2 for full PPR. Garrett Wilson, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith. Answer to that is yes. Mike Evans or Michael Pittman. To me, Devontae Smith jumps out as immediate.
I think it's Smith and Evans, if you ask me.
Well, they are asking you and me.
Yeah, I don't like Garrett Wilson. I don't like Garrett Wilson on a Thursday night in bad weather. I think he's the most talented wide receiver that you listed there. And in 2 to 3 years, he might be quarterback proof and weather proof, kind of like a Tyreek Hill or a Devontae Adams, given his skill set. But if you want to play what the two I think have the highest floor, it would be Devonta Smith and Mike Evans.
Yeah, and I think that's an incredibly important question when you're in the semifinals. Do you need a floor play or do you need an upside
a lottery ticket? Yeah.
If you're playing against a team that is much better than you, projected to go much higher and really legitimately should, play the upside guys. But the thing I like about Devontae Smith is he's actually kind of both in this list. To me,
he's still super talented. Yeah. Michael Evans is I think in the backside of his career. He's not, but he's still a 6'5" wide receiver with a great catch radius who Tom Brady loves. He's what Michael Pittman hopes to be someday. Michael Pittman's not there yet. He has Matty Ice or whomever throwing to him. Najee Harris is tricky. He hasn't been great consistently this year.
I also don't like
line hasn't been great.
And he's had no consistency at quarterback, even in terms of the actual quarterback playing with him.
But he is going against the Raiders. But
true.
So that he's got
Garrett Wilson, I'd be tempted to start maybe if Zach.
Yeah, he would be my Devontae Smith is 1. I think Mike Evans is 2 and Wilson is 2A. The problem is one plays Thursday night, one plays Sunday night.
Now, so just you have to make the call. Surprise entry compared to what we said, Evans and Pittman. Because
Nick Foles is quarterback.
Nick Foles. Well, Okay, listen, that's a good thought. I don't like pinning my hopes though on, kind of an
On
analysis of
Jeff
what
Saturday.
I'm just less comfortable with that. But listen, Just Bob, you might have it right, and we got to go for the glory. Christian Nova says, "Hey, what's happening, guys? Good to see you, Chris. Let us know if you have any questions. We talk strategy about all kinds of things."
Blurpy's rubbing it in when I mentioned he went right to a Yankee, former Yankee.
Oh yes. Well, remember Gary Sanchez when he
Is
came
now a
up,
Twin.
he was
Oh,
just
he was
crushing the
awesome.
ball.
Yeah.
And now he's struggling to bat 199. I don't know if he's struggling to, but he's batting it. Christian Nova said, "Would you guys lean Lawrence, Minshew, or Purdy?"
Ooh. Who's San Francisco playing?
I'm thinking Lawrence.
49ers play the Commanders at home. Oh, I kind of like that one too.
Okay, but I mean, how do you feel about Trevor Lawrence these days?
I'm not. Again, it's a Thursday night game in bad weather. I don't like quarterbacks on Thursday night games. The average score.
I hate it also.
the average score has been like 31
but
total points.
But don't you think it takes some balls to sit him at this point? I mean, he's got 2 games in a row over 300 yards, 3 or more touchdowns.
Yeah, all to Zay Jones, it feels like.
And his average yard per attempt has gone up. I mean,
I know. Yeah, I mean,
I start him.
I would
hate it.
I would start Minshew. That's just me. I like. Look, he's a gamer. If you look at the games he fills in and plays, he gets it done. He's got Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert is back to throw to. Miles Sanders out of the backfield, and one of the best offensive lines in football. And the Cowboys just gave up 40 points to the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. So
that's true. And they have a lot of injuries that just came in that are making them significantly worse. I can see it. I don't know. Christian Nova says Lawrence with no LT, no left tackle. Versus the Jets D and some questionable weather is scary. I agree. My hunch is though that Lawrence is starting to become almost matchup proof at this point.
I
hate this matchup. It's terrible.
I worry about game script. I worry it's going to be give the ball to ETN and Jermichael Hasty. Is that their backup? I think. Hand it off to each of them 35 times. Control the clock. Control this, and it's going to be a low scoring game. I think Minshew gives you a higher ceiling at this point in Dallas.
It seems like everyone on this show, including Just Bob, is not considering Purdy there, though.
Right. And not because it's not a decent matchup. The Commanders at home are decent.
I just think the Niners are going to run away with that and run and run and run. Just Bob says T-Law, then Minshew. So, Chris, hopefully we've clarified it a little bit, but it seems we all have a pretty clear pecking order. We'd play T-Law in almost all circumstances, but these circumstances are pretty bad. Yeah. And Minshew's circumstances are actually pretty good. I don't know. It's hard for me to trust Minshew. Especially just like if I had seen him for 1 week.
Mustache.
He's got the stash. Ross actually asked.
It's epic.
I got to give Kasey some credit for this. This was hilarious. Ross asked us if one of us could, grow the Minshew mustache. Now, of course, I could just, trim it and probably get there. Kasey said, "You want to say it? It's your joke."
I said I would have to hit puberty first. But the doctor said it's right around the corner. So fingers crossed I can get there. Well, just for men, look at this. This is 4 days without shaving. I shaved, 3 days.
The good news is, everybody, it's also 4 days without him shaving his head.
That's true.
So he grows in very fast up there.
At least I have, I've taken the trade-off. I don't have any facial hair, but at least I didn't have thinning. So,
all right, Kasey, you're in a semifinal. You're in how many semifinals? That's
3.
This week? 3 semifinals.
Yes.
All right, tell us about your matchups. I want to hear what your strategy is.
Well, my sleeper league, the MFSN league, it's going to be a tough matchup. It's against Alex Hunter, the fantasy hustler.
Yep.
I have Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley at Minnesota, ETN going tonight, Christian Kirk going tonight, Stephon Diggs at Chicago. I don't like that because it's supposed to be like -10. Mostert I have Okonkwo playing tight end against Houston because I think he's been doing well for Tennessee. Mostert, Lazard, Justin Fields. He's got Trevor Lawrence. So hopefully he throws all his touchdown passes to Christian Kirk or ETN.
You're going to find out a lot tonight.
He has Najee Harris and Pacheco. He has A.J. Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown. He also has scary Terry McLaurin and Aaron Jones in his flex spots. I don't know. He's probably going to play Garrett Wilson in his other super flex spot because he doesn't have another quarterback on his roster. So I assume, although if he's not paying attention and doesn't get it in, he plays in about 3 hours. So maybe he'll miss that. And he'll be forced to play Latavius Murray or Deion Jackson. So it's a tough matchup. We're right about 50-50 for who's going to win.
Is this one of those matchups where you'd say you're going to play a lot of your upside guys?
This is one I'm going to say I wish I had Jalen Hurts and I would feel confident playing almost anybody.
Right.
I have Gardner Minshew on my bench. So the question is Minshew or Daniel Jones. I'm going with Daniel Jones because it's in Minnesota in the retractable roof. So it'll be climate controlled and they are not a great defense. So, but I do like Minshew. I am going to play the horses that rode me there. I mean, I drafted really well. So I got pretty lucky there because I bet on Jalen Hurts. I bet on Saquon Barkley and they both paid off.
You know what, though? Don't cut yourself short. I mean, you could say you got lucky, but you picked some smart picks. I mean, Hurts and Fields in a super flex league, knowing that they're quarterbacks who can run. Fields especially, like we didn't see how good he could be. You were just smart doing that, I think. Okay, Just Bob says Minshew is a great player, but hasn't played in a year. See, that's where I'm like, can I really, in the playoffs, sit down Lawrence to play Minshew when he hasn't played? And Christian Nova knows, yeah, true. No games in a year has me worried. Also, says it's a tough one, man. So listen, I say Lawrence, but you got to go with your gut, Chris.
And here's my defensive Minshew. He's coming in garbage time 4 times this year, and in garbage time produced. Now, because like the Eagles have been like the 2018 Warriors. Was it 18 where like Steph Curry didn't play a fourth quarter for most of the season, but he was still averaging 34 points a game. It was ridiculous.
You do know basketball.
And Minshew, Hurts hasn't practiced all week. So Minshew has gotten 4 or 5 practices with the first team this entire week. So it's not like he was limited, and a late scratch, and then they're throwing him in. The only part of the game plan they have to scrap is quarterback scrambles. So
okay, now we have to find out if this is actually true. Just Bob says, I don't want to talk about all my teams. And then he says 28 of 36 teams in the semis. I assume he's joking, but you never know. In fantasy sports, it actually could be. No.
And then the other
nobody
team,
has 36 teams.
The other team I have in the semis, again, I stacked Hurts and A.J. Brown in that league. So I was the top scorer, and I was 14-1 on the season.
I love stacking, by the way. We talk strategy here. Stacking, I think, is such a great. Some people say, well, then you're going to get low scores some games. Yeah, it's true. You're also going to get high scores some games. I mean,
right.
To me,
the
volatility is worth it.
Right. You don't stack a quarterback with a number 3 receiver. You stack them with like A.J. Brown is a 1.
Do you see what
seems
Just
like
Bob
a
said?
safe stack? What?
Seriously, I think he has 36 teams. Just Bob, we love you.
Holy crap, that's
teams.
awesome. Like
not only that, but
10
28 of them are in the semis.
Wow.
10 are money leagues. Just Bob doing well. He's gonna eat. What's that? By the way, those of you who are out there, we sometimes have openings in our leagues. If you want to be in our league, Just Bob.
If you want a
37th league. If you want a 37th league.
Does he want to do your dynasty league that you're filling up?
That's also true. Listen, there are actually openings in our upcoming dynasty league, but you got to be somebody who responds to trades. Casey and
we'll call him out he's here every time. We can just put him on the spot.
Well, that's true, but he can hide in anonymity. Nobody sees him. But seriously, there are a couple spots open in that.
I think we need to get Just Bob we need to start a dynasty baseball league.
Ooh, Just Bob, do you do fantasy baseball? Do you guys do fantasy baseball? Because we're about to turn that corner. We're going to wrap up for today, and the reality is, fantasy football season is going to end during this time. Championship week is going to be next week. Good luck to all of you out there. We're pulling for you. Of course, if you're playing each other, we can't pull for you both. We can hope it's a good matchup. Just Bob says 18 fantasy baseball teams, 14 of 18 finished first. You are the man.
Wow.
Well, and speaking of which, Kasey, we talked about starting a dynasty baseball league. I really think we need to do that.
I know.
Just Bob, you want in? Just let us know.
Anybody, you guys want in? We'll put you. Yeah.
Well, anybody with the caveat, you have to be two things.
Active.
You got to be active, and you can't be an asshole.
Right. You got to.
We don't want that.
You got to have a sense of humor and not talk trash. Or at least talk trash as a sense of humor. Not personally attack. We're fine with smack talk.
Yeah.
Ask Ross. He talks smack all the time, but it's never personal.
Just Bob says, I will need to talk to one of you privately. We got to give him our email again, but of course I never remember the MFSN email. What is it? Damn it.
At mfsn.tv. What is it? MFSN the hub at mfsn.tv.
MFSN the hub at what?
mfsn.tv, I think.
There it is, guys. Anyone who wants to contact us, go ahead and email us there. If you're interested in joining leagues, we do have a couple of openings. We have some new leagues that'll be coming out. Guys, it's been a pleasure. This whole football season has been a pleasure. We're going to miss you next week. Happy holidays.
Yes.
Happy
whatever you celebrate, at least enjoy some relaxation time with the family.
Yep. And guys, we'll see you in the new year. We're going to be back January 5th. That's Thursday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, as usual. And we're going to start talking all kinds of things. Dynasty leagues of all sports. We're going to start talking about baseball. We're ready. Kasey and I are always ready for baseball.
Oh, man. The third base position just got deeper.
It did. It did with Carlos Correa
going to the Mets.
Yep. There's no room for him to play shortstop. So third base got a much needed depth
Stud
addition. All right, guys. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for watching. Put your comments below. We love to talk fantasy sports with you. We'll be back in 2 weeks, January 5th. Can't wait to start talking about all these other sports, dynasty leagues, off-season moves in football. Let's talk.
Come back next week. Come back in 2 weeks. Tell us how our moves tonight worked out for you.
Yep. And wishing you all the best. Thanks so much, everybody.